Alright, let's get into some special editions, and then we'll go back to other types of games, just because these are closest to me. Cursed Mountain. It is a Steelbook limited edition that has, I believe, a developer's DVD and maybe a soundtrack. I was really looking forward to this. It is a survival horror game that takes place, I believe, in the Tibetan mountains. So I was excited for it because, one, it sounded more unique, because I find survival horror games usually fall into it's like Resident Evil, or it's like Silent Hill, or it's Lovecraftian, or maybe it's one of those games where an enemy's chasing you. But they all kind of feel samey, but this was like, okay, this is going to take place in the mountains, and there's going to be snow and mountain climbing, and it has a new cultures, kind of stories built into it. So it's mostly based around like ghosts and like abandoned villages and stuff like that. And I like that it was cold. I made a video many years ago called Dark, Cold, and Alone, which I kind of go over why I like games that feel cold and oppressive. But yeah, the execution wasn't great. The bosses are really frustrating. Some of the controls don't work as well as they should. I think that this would make a fantastic remake. Like, if this was put in the hands of a developer today that really knew what they were doing, this would make a fantastic game. I'm about halfway through it, and I don't know if I'll play it again when I'm done, but it's definitely an ambitious title and very interesting, and it flew under the radar. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, the box edition that comes with the music CD, the orchestrated music, and the Wii Motion Plus, which is gold. What can I say about Skyward Sword? I think that I was disappointed. Largely, I was disappointed. Not because of the waggle controls. I thought the Wii Motion Plus controls were great. I think they worked perfectly for me all the time. What was frustrating for me, I think, was just that I was expecting it to be Wind Waker in the sky, where you're flying around, going to these different islands. But there's only a handful of sky islands, I guess you'd call them. So I was disappointed that it wasn't Wind Waker in the sky. It felt very compartmentalized. Like, the dungeons are really good, but they were kind of, you'd drop down into the grass area, and you couldn't just, run from the grass area to the desert area. You know what I mean? I think I would like it more if I played it today than I did at the time, because my expectations are lower, but, nice graphics, nice controls, nice characters, music. It is still, it's not my favorite Zelda game. It's probably pretty low, but it's still, I think, a good game. Super Mario AllStars 25th anniversary. Oh boy, was this ever a big deal? I think for me, this was the earliest, I guess, special edition limited game that Nintendo put out that really caused a scramble. People were selling this for $100 the next day that it came out. I don't think it was very expensive, but it had, it's got a GameCube controller support, so that's cool. But basically, it's the Super Nintendo game, Super Mario All-Stars, on the Wii, and it also comes with a little booklet and a music CD, I think. Is there a booklet? It's a history of Mario. Yeah, a little booklet and then the game itself. So I was really happy to get this. I think it was a budget title, actually. And it's fun games, because my Super Nintendo game doesn't work anymore. It doesn't save, so it's nice to have that version. Kirbys 20th Anniversary Dream Collection. Again, comes with a collectible, little collectible booklet, I believe. Yeah, a little collectible booklet. Really basic Kirby stuff, and the game, and then a music CD. This is a great CD. I got this largely because I like Kirby a lot, but because Kirby Superstar isn't a game that I own. Kirby's Dream Land 3 I hadn't even played before. The other ones I played quite a bit, like these four. But to have it all in one package, and look at this lovely case. A great collection as well. Okay, The Last Story. So The Last Story comes in this book thing with the game, and a little CD, and an art booklet. All these are kind of similar special editions, but Yeah, and the cover is like embossed, like you can feel what you're touching. A nice collection, or a nice package, I should say. So this was one of the, I don't even remember the name, it was like Project something, where there were 3 games. There was Pandora's Tower, there was Xenoblade Chronicles, and then the last story were 3 games that were released in other areas but not North America. So there was a really big online push to get them all published here. So they did eventually end up publishing them. Xseed did it. And it had a lot of hype because it was made by some of the people that made Final Fantasy. So it has like Final Fantasy-like music and kind of Final Fantasy-like stories. Interesting battle system. This is also like a pretty ambitious game. I think it's good. Yeah, and there's not too much on the Wii in terms of like more traditional RPG systems. So still a good game to pick up. Mario Kart Wii with the Wii wheel in here. Great game. Mario Kart Wii is a fantastic game. If you don't want to use the Wii wheel, you can use just a Wiimote, you can use an nunchuck, you can use a GameCube controller, you could use a classic controller. So lots of options. I think this is the one that introduced really good online play, and also it introduced the motorcycles? I could be wrong, but I think this is the first really big online one that had motorcycles as well. Fantastic game, lots of good levels. The Wii wheel works fine, but it's not great for what I would call like competitive play, like games you're serious about. So I would use the Wii wheel if I was like at a party, but if I was playing online and really trying to win, then I would use the GameCube controller because that's what I'm used to from playing so much Double Dash. Still worth picking up these days, I think. Lego Rock Band, yep. Lego Rock Band. It's a rock band game, kind of Lego themed, has songs like, I Want You Back, Jackson 5, We Will Rock You by Queen. It's got the Ghostbusters song. Perfectly serviceable version of Rock Band. Okay, we've got some Sonic games now. Sonic and the Secret Rings. It is a game where you are playing as Sonic, and it's kind of like on rails, running at the screen. It's kind of like an endless runner, sort of. Not the best controls. I believe this was a launch game. Apparently there's 40 party games in here, which I've never played, but I liked it. I kind of expect Sonic games to come with problems, It's a game series where there's very few games where it feels really well put together, just being honest, but I still like them because I have a soft spot for Sonic. So this is like set in Arabian Nights. I enjoyed it. And the second one in the series, Sonic and the Black Knight, I haven't played. It's still in the Sonic Storybook series there. This is like King Arthur's Court kind of stuff. Sonic Colors I also haven't played, but I've heard good things. And then Sonic Unleashed I have played. So before you just skip ahead, this version is unique to the Wii. It has different levels, and I think fewer of the werehog levels that people don't like. So if you played one of the other versions and you're like, I kind of like those ones, and you want to play it again, I would recommend the Wii version, which I think is, obviously not graphics-wise or anything, but I think it is the best version put together. Final Fantasy, The Crystal Bearers. I believe this was supposed to be a launch title, but was pushed back. If you've played Final Fantasy or Crystal Chronicles, it's nothing really like that. It's kind of like a more traditional Final Fantasy game. It has a lot of set pieces, so you'll be using your powers and Wiimotes to lift up something, but then eventually you'll be thrown into like an area where you're using it like a shooting game. So it did have interesting set pieces like that. I didn't like how you had to use the Wiimote for everything, like to read a sign, you had to use it. It's definitely unique. Not one of my favorite games on the Wii, but I am glad that I played it, and I will probably play it again at some point. Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. This is basically like a few episodes of the Harvey Birdman show, except it mixed with Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, so it's like court cases that you have to find evidence for. I've actually never watched the show, but I've enjoyed what I've played of the game so far. It's really short, but also really cheap, so you get what you pay for. Epic Mickey. I remember when this game was first announced, I was not fooled by any of the concept art that came out. They try to make it look like super dark and grungy, and there's like zombies versions of characters. It ended up being much more colorful. What's interesting about it is I just think it's a great game. Like it is kind of, the gimmick for it is, I guess, you use the Wiimote to like paint things or erase things. You want to erase this bridge so an enemy can't get you, but then you paint in like a lamp post so it lights up something. And it's a third person Mickey Mouse game, I suppose. It is, I guess, darker than what you'd expect, but it's still pretty cheery. What I like about it is it explores many of the historical aspects of Mickey Mouse, so you end up like jumping into, like Steamboat Willie or something like that, and it's black and white. Epic Mickey, The Power of Two, which I haven't played, features musical numbers and voice acting, so I think the creator, is it Warren Spector, perhaps, wanted like there to be a trilogy, and I don't remember what the third game was supposed to be, but this one was supposed to be kind of like a musical. This one is 2-player. I haven't played it, but I am looking forward to it. The one thing which I think is very fair is that the camera's not great in Epic Mickey, but I do still think it's such a unique game and totally worth playing. Trauma Center Second Opinion and Trauma Center New Blood. Oh geez, what a terrible, terrible cover. Who would buy this? It looks awful. So these are 2 Atlas-published games. The Trauma Center series, I believe, started on the DS, and it's a surgery game. I've played New Blood because it has 2-player, and I haven't played Second Opinion yet. But I thought New Blood was a lot of fun. And it's essentially, you cut somebody up using the pointer, and then you have to sew pieces of them together and remove gallbladders and like all this stuff that takes place kind of in it's like an anime-like world, so a lot of crazy stuff happens. It's not just like, oh, I broke my arm. It's stuff like, oh, I don't want to spoil anything, but it does have some really weird parts, but a lot of fun, and still, I don't think that hard to find. Deadly Creatures. This is a really interesting game. This is kind of one of the games on the Wii that's like, this is like a B or a B-, but it's so interesting that I still want to play it. You play as creatures like, like a tarantula, and you climb on walls and stuff, and attack enemies, which are like other bugs or snakes or whatever. And what's interesting is that the story is told through, like, you just listening to, like, humans talking. One which is Dennis Hopper, and the other one is Billy Bob Thornton, which is interesting because he, famously, several times has called video games, like, terrible. He hates video games, and he, like, blames them for his son not being, being too apathetic. I don't know. But this is definitely a unique title. When people would ask me, what kind of stuff's on the Wii? Isn't it just kiddie stuff? And I would talk about, Zack and Wiki and rail shooters and Let's Tap, all these really unique, interesting things. But also I talk about Deadly Creatures. I've gotten maybe, halfway through a couple times, and I haven't beaten it, but I still enjoyed it. Fortune Street. So this is a series that has existed, I think maybe since the Famicom back in the day in Japan, but this might be one of the first ones that was released here. And this is essentially like, it's similar to like Monopoly. So all of these little areas have things that you can buy, like buying hotels essentially. And if you get all 3 of them in an area, then it costs more. What sets it apart, other than the fact that it has like half Dragon Quest characters and half Mario characters, is that you have stocks. So you can invest in other people's hotels so that if someone lands on it, you actually get a little bit of money, right? Because you own stocks in that hotel. The problem with that is that then the hotel, you have to pay more if you land on it. So you're helping your enemy while also trying to help yourself. And then you can also like sell all of your stocks in one hotel to crash its value. You can outbuy other people. It's actually a lot of fun. It's very slow. It has a multiplayer option. I've never been able to convince somebody to play more than 45 minutes with me, and it can take hours to beat a single level, which is good. If it's single player, then you can just, save it and come back to it. It's not like a rip-roaring good time, but I think it's a super solid game and very interesting, and it helped me understand how stocks work, so nothing wrong with that. Whoops, I forgot one special edition. Monster Hunter Tri. This is the version that came with the Classic Controller Pro, which I could be wrong, but I feel like Capcom said, we'll bring Monster Hunter Tri to your system, but you need a proper controller. So they helped them design this. Again, no research, could be wrong. This was a great game. Introduced tons of people to Monster Hunter. I think if it wasn't for this game, Monster Hunter wouldn't be even nearly as big as it is today. I think this is a great game. You get to introduce fighting underwater, which some people liked and some didn't. And this was at a time where Nintendo kind of had the reputation of like putting kiddie games on their system. But then Capcom was supposed to make this, I think, for the PS3, and they said, nope, we're doing it for the Wii. And I think it was a big success for them. I convinced like 2 or 3 other people to buy this at the same time as me, so we could all play online together. The online was great. I believe it was Capcom's own servers, not Nintendo servers, so that might have something to do with it. But the controller Pro, I like. Monster Hunter Tri, I like. And I guess there's one more special edition I have as well. Oh, Red Steel, everyone's favorite launch title. This was heavily panned in the reviews. People were really excited about this game when it came out because it was like, oh yeah, we're going to get to use the Wiimote. And the first thing people thought of with the Wiimote is we're going to use swords to slash people. So the controls in this are okay. It's definitely a launch title. It's not nearly as bad as people think, but it is super generic. Like, it feels like the most generic, GameCube game slapped on with some other controls. Oh, you're this white guy in Japan and you have to fight the Yakuza, and it's just, it's not great. Now, Red Steel 2 has nothing to do with Red Steel 1. This one you need the Wii Motion Plus, which is what this bundle had inside of it. And this is a heavily stylized, cel-shaded, I should say. Cel-shaded game, which is kind of like a brawler. So you'll enter an area, and then 4 or 5 enemies will show up, and you have to beat them before you can move on. That's kind of it. Half of it is set it's kind of like half Western, half Japanese. So you'll have weird music that mixes those together. The controls work fantastic, and it's super fun because it's kind of like a combo system, sort of like Bulletstorm, where you hit someone with a sword and hit them into the air, then you jump into the air and you shoot them with your shotgun, and then great, fantastic game. Probably one of my favorites on the Wii. I also did a review of this on my channel if you wanted to hear a bit more. Okay, continuing the launch title to kind of different sequel, Excite Truck. Man, this is fun. I don't know, a lot of people don't like this one. It's super arcadey. You control holding the Wiimote like this. Not like in Mario Kart where it's facing towards you, it's facing down. And it actually works really well. It is one of the few games where you can put your own music into it. You put music on the SD card and put it in so you can race your own music. It's super arcadey in the sense that you go hundreds of kilometers per hour, you hit a button and then the ground will change, a mountain will rise up, and then you can use the mountain as a ramp, and then you have air and you do tricks. Here you get super air, you get 5 stars, so it's star-based. So you could still get first in this game and lose the match, because you have to have the most stars. Or you get them from doing things like doing tricks in the air, like doing spins and that kind of thing. Such a fun game. I really wish they made more games like this. Excitebox is like Mario Kart Wii, where you do have it facing towards you, and is similar in the sense that it's very arcadey, but also it's just insane. First off, you play as robot cars that are based on animals, so that's already weird. But then also there's games within some of the levels. You have to drive into a soccer ball to hit it to go into a goal, or there's also parts where you grab onto pipes and spin around. There's poker games. There's just all sorts of really weird random things, which sounds like a mess, but it is actually tons of fun. I don't think they got this in PAL regions, but I could be incorrect. Another great game. When I first saw this cover, I was like, what is going on here? But after a match or two, you actually get it. Endless Ocean and Endless Ocean Blue World. I have not played Blue World, but Endless Ocean was I don't want to say it's a lot of fun. It's not really fun, but it's third person, you're diving, you use the Wiimote to kind of turn where you're going to go. Very basic. But basically, you find fish and take photos and pet them, and there are some really great moments, though, where you're going into super deep underground caves, and you come up this beautiful like cavern that's all reflective with ice or crystals, and like giant whales will go over and cast shadows. So this is a super relaxing game. For a while I was playing this like half an hour before bed, like most nights, just to kind of like wind down. Another game where I think you can put your music into. Blue World I think is just more of the same, but expanded. You can use a controller instead. I don't actually know much about this, but I think I would like it seeing as I like the first one. Batman the Brave and the Bold, the video game. I actually have not watched Batman the Brave and the Bold, but this is a great game. Again, way forward, so it looks really pretty, it handles well, has voice acting, I believe, from most of the people in the show, or close enough. It has good writing, and I guess it's like a beat 'em up, I suppose. Side-scrolling beat 'em up. Yeah, it's a pretty side-scrolling beat 'em up. So like a lot of way forward games, the gameplay department is like, it's pretty good. But where it comes in and shines is like the graphics and the presentation. Animal Crossing City Folk. I technically have not played this much. I think I played it a little bit back in the day. My partner at the time was the one who played it, and I watched them play quite a bit. I was not too interested in it because, in my opinion, it didn't change enough from Animal Crossing 1. But I actually am kind of interested in starting it now, just for fun, and seeing how that goes. It did introduce a lot of things. I mean, I don't remember what they are. I talked about Animal Crossing with someone for like 2 hours, so you can check that out on my channel if you want to know more about Animal Crossing. Final Fantasy Fables, Chocobo's Dungeon. You can see I just leave all these stickers on, like, because I kind of like to remember. Oh yeah, I paid $20 for this. I know where I got it too, because I know exactly where that tape was from. I know who I bought this from and all that kind of stuff. This is a continuation of, I guess, the Chocobo Dungeon series. So it is primarily a dungeon crawler. So you're walking through dungeons. I'm not sure if they're randomized or not. I think they are. But it's very grindy, so you need to kill a lot of enemies playing as the Chocobo to level up and go into harder dungeons. This is a game where, like, I look at this and I'm like, I can't believe this exists. You know, a Final Fantasy game, Chocobo Dungeon on the Wii, a full game created with lots of work, and no one ever talks about it. If it's not sought after now, I think it will be someday. And on that note, Puna, which is very sought after. I don't think it's worth the hype. It is fun. What's cool about it is you can play with just one nunchuck, which is great for days where, like my wrist hurts for some reason. I can just use my other hand and then use a nunchuck to play and just like kind of chill on the couch. Cel-shaded RPG. It does have a lot of interesting RPG elements, like what you're powering up is your little bonbon, I think they're called, to attack people. People say it's like Earthbound. I don't see it. To me, this is more like, it kind of feels like it feels a bit empty. It does have like some little mini games and missions you gotta do, like, oh, you gotta work at the cafe kind of thing. I do think that this is more style than substance. That's not saying it's a bad game. It's just that it's not an amazing RPG that's also quirky. It's like a good RPG, or an okay RPG that's really quirky. I still think it's worth playing, but I would watch some reviews or gameplay footage if you're thinking about getting it, and temper your expectations. It does feel kind of empty a lot of the time. And that's actually a really nice segue into No More Heroes, which was criticized a bit for the overworld being really empty. I honestly kind of like it for some reason. But this is a game, I mean, these two games have been, I believe, ported to other things. But at the time, this was a really big deal because it was a mature game. It's is it Grasshopper? I can't remember the name of the person who put this together, but he puts together all sorts of weird stuff. And basically, you're a less reputable character who has like a kind of like a lightsaber to attack people. It's very childish at times, so it has like poop jokes and stuff and like sex jokes, but kind of childish ones. And the second one, I believe, has more to do with like doing mini games and stuff, and it's just a continuation. I actually really like No More Heroes. I didn't have a lot of the same criticisms as other people, but I'm looking forward to playing the second one.